By 1821, the Holy Alliance of Prussia, Russia, and Austria had only been around for 6 years, yet it was about to face one of the most pivotal events in its history, the Greek War for Independence. For the past 100 years, the Ottoman grip on its European holdings had been slowly waning, deteriorating to such degrees that many nations within Europe had stopped considering it a great power. This deterioration was furthered during the Napoleonic Wars, especially after Napoleon's invasion of Egypt. By the 1910s, many saw the empire as one bad event from total collapse. Within the Balkans, a myriad of small nationalist groups had noticed this, and were emboldened by the revolutions of the early 19th century. The Greeks in particular had been under Ottoman rule since the fall of the Byzantine Empire, and were desperate to break free and form their own independent state. In 1814, the secret organization Filiki Eteria was founded in Odessa and began planning an eventual Greek uprising. The original plan included uprisings in Peloponnese, the Danubian principalities of Moldava Wallachia, and Constantinople itself. The hope of the organization was to restore the Byzantine Empire, as many Greeks still considered themselves Greek Romans. Events, however, would unfold differently than what was originally planned. In 1820, Alexander Ypsilantis, a general in the Russian army and adjunct to the Tsar, was named the leader of the Filiki Eteria. The following year, the Ottomans became embroiled in a war against Persia, and a civil war against Ali Pasha. While in Europe, the great powers were busy putting down small uprisings in Italy and Spain. The Filiki Eteria saw this as a perfect time to launch the revolt and rose up on February 22, 1821. Unfortunately, Ottoman authorities soon discovered the plans, and the revolt started slowly over the next couple of days in the Danubian principalities. This revolt was quickly suppressed, being defeated in battle on June 7th, but it sparked another revolt starting on the 25th of March, 1821, in the Peloponnese, which was joined by uprisings in Crete, Macedonia, and central Greece. By early March 1822, the First Hellenic Republic was declared, with support flowing in from all over Europe. The previously ambitious goals of a restored Byzantium had been scrapped in favor of gaining international support from Britain and France. Initially, the news of the revolution was greeted with dismay by the more conservative leaders of Europe. They saw the revolution as a threat to the system established by the Congress of Vienna. However, the Greeks found sympathy from the ordinary people, and thousands flocked to the nation in order to help it in its fight against the Ottomans. Infighting and Ottoman offensives would go on to fracture the rebellion, and for a time all seemed lost. For a year, the Ottomans inched closer to completely putting out the revolt, calling on Egyptian and Arab mercenaries to put even more pressure on the Greeks. In 1823, when all hope seemed lost, international opinion among the conservative leaders began to favor the Greeks. Specifically, Britain began putting pressure on the Ottomans, using the Ionian Islands to cut off Ottoman supply routes and to support the Greek revolutionaries. Russia joined Britain in supporting the Greeks after Tsar Alexander was succeeded by Tsar Nicholas I in 1825, and France eventually joined the duo officially on July 6, 1827. In October, these nations would destroy the Ottoman navy at the Battle of Naravino, and Greece would gain its independence 2 years later. Due to Russia's involvement in the Battle of Naravino, the Ottomans closed the Dardanelles to Russian ships, effectively cutting Russia off from trade. Reacting to this, Tsar Nicholas I went to war with the Ottomans in April of 1828. The fighting would further cripple the Ottoman fighting ability and their internal stability, leading to many of the great powers worried the Ottomans would be the catalyst for another wave of revolutions. The end of the Russo-Turkish War in 1829 saw Russia taking several key areas of Ottoman territory, including the city of Kars, and a return of Russian access through the Dardanelles. This war, coupled with the Russian support of the Greek revolutionaries, left Russia looking like an aggressive opportunist. This angered the Austrians, as they felt Russia was actively opposing the goal of the Holy Alliance. By the end of 1829, the revolution was a success. But the great powers of Europe were frantic to ensure the Ottomans didn't collapse further. Britain and France both grew anxious about Russian ambitions, which would later lead to intervening in support of the Turks some years later, while nationalism within the Balkans was emboldened after the successful revolution, especially after some events happened in Serbia. At the start of the 19th century, the Serbian nation was still under Ottoman rule. After the initial success of the French Revolution, the idea of a Serbian nation-state seemed like a real possibility. Due to the French invasion of Egypt, many Ottoman troops were taken from the Balkans and sent there to fight the French, making a prime time for an uprising. The fuse was lit in 1801 when a group of Janissaries killed the local Pasha, Haji Mustafa, who had been on good terms with the local Serbian population. Tensions spiked, and in 1804 the Serbian people launched a decentralized, peasant-style revolt against the Ottomans, under the command of Georgia Petrovic, a 35-year-old livestock trader who had fought the Ottomans as a soldier in the Austrian army during the Austro-Turkish Wars of 1788 to 1791. Initially, the Serbians simply wanted to show the Ottomans that they couldn't be pushed around, and that they deserved some form of respect from the Ottoman government. However, due to no agreement being reached, and after an Ottoman army was repulsed by the rebels, the Serbian demands started to grow. The odds increasingly moved into their favor after the Russians invaded the Ottomans, and the revolt captured Belgrade in 1807. The Sultan, desperate to free up troops to strengthen the defense against Russia, offered full autonomy to the Serbs. Convinced by Russia to decline, they would soon regret this, as Russia made peace with the Ottomans and the revolt had all of its gains reversed by 1808. In 1809, the revolt was crushed, and 100,000 refugees fled to the Austrian Empire. Although crippled, the revolution would be reignited in 1815 under the leadership of Milos Obrenović. A peaceful gathering quickly turned sour, and the Ottomans massacred the demonstrators and impaled ethnic Serbian prisoners outside the city of Belgrade. This sparked a renewed Serbian revolt, which, coupled with Ottoman fears of Russian intervention, was quickly appeased. The Serbs were granted increased autonomy and would slowly grow more and more independent of the Ottoman Empire as the years went on, in part due to the Greek Revolution. In 1829, the Serbian government was officially recognized as a tributary state. This meant Serbia would have full internal autonomy, while the Ottomans would take care of its foreign policy and relations. This compromise, along with Greek independence, would stabilize the Balkans for some decades afterward. Looking further west, Italian nationalism began to increase in the early 1800s. Initially, it was a smaller, more underground movement, but it began to pick up momentum after the Congress of Vienna, in which the Austrians secured their rule over Lombardy-Venetia. It further increased after the Two Sicilies insurrection in 1820, which fought for a constitution in the region of southern Italy and the island of Sicily. At first successful, it was soundly defeated by the Holy Alliance, increasing anti-Austrian sentiment across the peninsula. This sentiment was greatest in the region of Piedmont, and it quickly boiled over into a new revolution headed by Santoro di Santa Rosa, who saw it necessary to expel the Austrians from Italy and to unify the peninsula under the House of Savoy. Starting on the night of March 10th, 1821, the revolutionaries occupied the Piedmontese city of Alessandria. Many of the revolutionaries had adopted the red, white, and green tricolor of the defunct Cisalpine Republic, an ex-puppet of Napoleonic France. Their initial demands were for a constitutional monarchy, based on that of Spain. And after capturing the citadel of Turin on March 12th, King Victor Emmanuel of Piedmont abdicated, handing the title of king to his brother Charles Felix, who was in Modena at the time. This meant the rule of Piedmont would temporarily fall to the regent prince Charles Albert, who approved the constitution on March 13th in order to save himself from the hands of the revolutionaries. However, the new king Charles Felix was quick to act and had the new constitution revoked and began to call upon the Holy Alliance for help against the revolutionaries. On the 3rd of April, Felix would issue a pardon to all soldiers who had taken part in the revolt, but with strict sanctions against rebel officers. This proclamation won favor with Metternich, and he was quick to intervene and support Charles Felix. Between April 8th and 11th, a series of small battles were fought around Alessandria and Novara between the rebel forces and the forces of the Holy Alliance. The result was a crushing victory, and after Victor Emmanuel refused to take the throne back, Charles Felix was officially coronated on the 25th of April, 1821. This intervention by the Holy Alliance, especially Austria, had only made the nationalist movement in the Italian peninsula stronger, and the problems there were only going to get worse. With the end of the Greek War for Independence in 1829, Europe was once again stabilized. Unfortunately, the relations within the Holy Alliance were strained to the breaking point. Austria and Prussia had lost faith in the Russians, having viewed the Russian involvement in the Greek Revolution as running against the main goal of the Holy Alliance, and instead they saw it as a move of opportunism. The nations of the Holy Alliance wouldn't have much time to talk things through, however, as Paris was once again headed towards disaster. Barricades were thrown up, guillotines were dragged into the streets. The July Revolution had begun. Thank you for watching this episode of Lighting the Powder Keg. The next episode will go over the July Revolution and another Italian uprising. But this time, they have a powerful ally. Special thank you to my patron backers for supporting my channel. You guys are awesome. If you'd like to see more, please consider subscribing, and please be sure to share your thoughts or feedback with me in the comments below. You can keep up with me through my Discord channel or Instagram, and if you want to support what I'm doing, you can check out my Teespring shop and Patreon linked in the description below.